Have you ever wondered what you would have been like if your parents had been different? The answer is simple. You would be a completely different person. If your father had eaten a different sandwich a year before you were born, you would no longer exist in your current form.
The world is woven from billions of lives, every strand crossing every other. What we call premonition is just movement of the web. If you could attenuate to every strand of quivering data, the future would be entirely calculable, as inevitable as mathematics.
The theory was grandiose, but completely wrong, and there are two good reasons for that. If you're interested in why this idea failed and what science says about randomness in the universe, like and subscribe. We'll figure it all out. I'm going to talk about some difficult things now, but not much, and I promise you'll understand everything eventually. In the first half of the 20th century, a monumental battle of ideas unfolded between Einstein and Bohr. Einstein believed that all events in the universe are predetermined, deterministic, and can be calculated. To achieve this, it would have been sufficient to know all the laws of nature and possess a super powerful computer. However, Einstein encountered quantum mechanics, which Niels Bohr was actively developing. The fact is that at the quantum level, quantities exist that are fundamentally impossible to know in advance. They are characterized by fundamental randomness, indeterminism, the complete opposite of determinism. This infuriated Einstein. He denied the probabilistic nature of the quantum world and was convinced that quantum mechanics was based on certain hidden variables, as yet unknown to physicists. In letters to Bohr, he exclaimed, "God does not play dice." Here, Einstein used the concept of a pantheistic God, that is, the universe itself rather than a personal creator God. Scientists of the time were unable to conduct an experiment that would definitively resolve the dispute. So Einstein died confident of his correctness. As technology advanced, scientists conducted numerous tests, repeatedly confirming quantum mechanics. But Einstein's supporters had one final objection. How random were the parameters in these experiments? And rightly so. However, on May 9, 2018, Einstein must have turned over in his grave. Researchers in the Big Bell Test project decided to use one final argument: human free will. After all, only humans can ensure true randomness in the universe. The Big Bell Test created an online game available on various platforms. Players had to generate the longest possible random sequences of zeros and ones. But that's not all. Humans are too predictable, so each player was confronted with a machine learning algorithm called the Oracle. It ensured that the sequences weren't formulaic, constantly adapting to the player's behavior, forcing them to think about how to act more unpredictably and synchronizing actions over time. This provided the system with a huge data set. The game was incredibly engaging, with elements of competition and visualization of each player's contribution to the global experiment. Despite its apparent simplicity, the game was highly polished, effectively exploiting engagement and a competitive spirit. You genuinely wanted to beat the Oracle and reach new levels. Thanks to its widespread use on social media, the game gained popularity. Data from 100,000 players was used for the experiment. On November 30th, 2016, over 12 hours of measurements, players generated a data stream of 1,000 bits per second, ultimately producing 97 million random binary numbers. Notice to the principle of locality was further undermined by the fact that the players were not connected to each other, being located in different parts of the world. Maximum randomness was also ensured by the fact that the players didn't know where and when measurements were being taken, or whether their contributions would be used. Only a portion of the dataset was used for the final measurements. Data from the online game was sent to 12 laboratories on 5 continents to conduct 13 experiments on quantum entanglement. The tests were conducted on photons, individual atoms, groups of atoms, and superconducting qubits. As expected, the researchers found no evidence of hidden variables. The probability that the principle of locality operates in our universe approaches zero. Local realism has once again lost to quantum mechanics. The conclusions of the Big Bell Test physicists state, if human free will exists, then fundamentally random physical phenomena that cannot be predicted also exist. Thus, Einstein's most staunch supporters have one last chance to declare that free will does not exist and that all events are predetermined. But that's already metaphysics, and I think Einstein himself would not have approved. And whatever Sir Arthur Conan Doyle wrote, Sherlock Holmes used induction, not deduction. Based on what has been said, you should right now conclude by induction. Our reality rests on an element of genuine randomness. Moreover, randomness is a fundamental principle of the universe. As Lincoln said, books are needed to remind a man that his original thoughts are not so new. So it is here. Intentionally or not, you are being misled by a false idea proposed in 1814 by the French mathematician Pierre-Simon Laplace. Laplace proposed a thought experiment. We can view the present state of the universe as the effect of its past and the cause of its future. A mind that knew at a given moment all the forces driving nature and the positions of all the bodies of which it is composed, and was powerful enough to analyze this data, would have no doubts. The future would exist in its eyes just as the past did. This statement is over 200 years old. It sounds pompous, but in essence, Laplace is saying exactly the same thing as the proponents of determinism. It's strange that Sherlock Holmes, a character who lived later, didn't know the basics of quantum mechanics. That's forgivable, but an error in logic is unforgivable. Let me explain. Even if the universe were deterministic and could be calculated, the existence of a superintelligence or a computer that could predict the future would still be impossible. Why? Because of the paradox. Now rack your brain and think about it, otherwise you won't understand. Imagine that a superintelligence exists and can calculate the future based on the current position of all atoms. Let's say it calculates the future 2 minutes ahead in 1 minute. But as soon as it makes its first prediction, it will already contain its next prediction, which will include a prediction about the next prediction, and so on, creating an infinite recursion of predictions. If time in the universe is infinite, then after its first calculation, the superintelligence must know the entire history of the universe to its end, which requires infinite memory, infinite processing power, and infinite computing speed, which is fundamentally impossible in the material world. As you can see, predestination, fate, and destiny are all nonsense that bear no relation to reality. The question of whether you will be conceived and born is purely a matter of chance. It wasn't predetermined. But to what extent was it not predetermined? What are the odds that you will be born? Considering the most obvious factors, the probability of your parents meeting, given the total number of men and women on Earth and the number of potential partners for each, the probability that they will want to meet again and develop a relationship, and finally, that a specific sperm will unite with a specific egg, creating a new life. And then there's the chance that your ancestors could have had children who trace back to your parents. Your chance of being born is approximately 1 in 10 to the power of 2,685. Imagine that scale. Incidentally, the number of atoms in the observable universe is only about 10 to the 80th. It's like 2 million people rolled dice at the same time, and everyone got the same number. And this, as I said, doesn't account for an infinite number of other less obvious variables. Even taking all of this into account, the probability of your birth is far beyond the margin of error. It can be ignored. Yes, if conception had occurred a second earlier or later, you wouldn't have been born. Statistically, you shouldn't exist. You shouldn't have been born. The thought of the incredible randomness of your existence is simply astounding, isn't it? Tell me in the comments what you think about it. Do you believe in such luck, or do you see something more? Yet you are here, watching this video. Against all incredible odds, against statistical logic, you exist. And that is perhaps the most amazing miracle in the universe. Thank you for your curiosity and attention until the end. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to give it a like. It really helps a lot. Subscribe and check my other videos. Goodbye.